wearing this black t-shirt, but I realize it makes my skin look even more pasty white than it already is. Great. The Toronto Defiant. They've not had the best time in the Overwatch League on the last few seasons, let's be real. But they've made some drastic changes this year. A complete rebuild, basically, from the ground up. Let's go through the kept, lost, and added players. Hisu, they've kept. They've lost Aspire, Logix, Nice, Sado, Michelle, Aztec, Lastro, and Anson J. They've added Twilight, Hotbird, Chorong, Muse, Finale, although, and Moby Dick as their coach, or their assistant coach. That's basically a complete rebuild. With a complete rebuild like this, completely different expectations are put on the team comparatively to last year. They dropped everybody except for a single player in Hisu, so now you're looking at a team where they could actually perform pretty well. They've got a very, very good lineup of players that have a superstar almost in every single role. Now, I wouldn't say they're some of the cracked best in the league, like Fleta level performers. Maybe Twilight, in fact, is, but I wouldn't say the rest of the team is, but I would say they have incredibly core foundation of players that can do exceptionally well. Like, this is a team, if they continue to perform like the Toronto Defiant has done over the last few years, I would say this is a massive failure on their part. Let's go through some of the players. So apart from losing Aspire, this team does look fairly strong. Twilight is in the back line to alongside Chorong, who's an ex-Talon player, another great feeder team into the Overwatch League. And if you remember rightly, Twilight went on San Francisco Shock. He was mainly playing Voskaya Industries and a couple of bits here and there, but mainly that map, and playing as Ana, because that's just the strat they wanted to run. Thank God there's no Voskaya Industries in Overwatch 2. Good God, 2CP was terrible. But Twilight, as a support, you would think would be in all the time. But the San Francisco Shock had such a stacked lineup of players, it wasn't too much of a shock to see Twilight take a backseat. Although, when he did play, even though he's not been consistently playing in official matches, he was still absolutely cracked. So having him alongside a Contenders player in Chorong being brought up to the league for a first time, that's incredible. Chorong's going to be allowed to rely on Twilight no matter what happens. So with a crazy player like Twilight in the backline, let's look at the DPS. Of course, they kept Hisu. They've added Although, who was a part of that strange amalgamation of players in 2020 for London Spitfire. They also have Finale as well. I think in general, this DPS line has good coverage since Hisu can play a ton of different heroes. And I expect he'll be able to play a Sojourn when she gets released, or when he can play her in Overwatch 2 if Sojourn's going to be meta. Although is a Tracer player at heart, and I think he's going to do pretty well on that pick. He's definitely not someone up there like Striker, for example, but he's pretty reasonable at the pick. And Finale, not sure if we'll see him a ton. Like maybe, we'll have to wait and see. But we're looking at Hisu here mainly for this DPS lineup and his flexibility throughout the whole thing. And with that backline, that looks pretty damn consistent with Twilight there. This DPS line is going to be set up for greatness, I'm sure. And like I said, there is a key piece in every single role, and the tank role, I think, has two key pieces rather than just a single one. They have Muse from Gladiators last year, and they also have Hotbird from Philadelphia Fusion. Now, they have every tank covered, in my opinion. Just the whole board is covered. It's a straight up solid tank line. I guess you can't really call it a tank line now. It's just a single tank, but it's just, you're going to have a straight up solid tank player in the server at all times. I think Hotbird's definitely had some ups and downs. Philadelphia Fusion has been a team that, you know, the joke is that they never end up taking the crown, right? But Hotbird has been performing extremely well on that team. He had a decent-ish time on New York Excelsior in 2020, especially when they first broke out at the homestand in 2020. He performed out of his mind. His self-destructs were crazy, as some of my favorite moments casting, actually, funnily enough. And Muse, who's ex-Gladiators. And not only that, I think it's important to touch on Hotbird a little bit more here, because Moby Dick has been added as an assistant coach from Philadelphia Fusion. And I think it's flown under a lot of people's radar, or at least the majority of people, because the players are more like front and center of the team, and coaches sometimes get a little less publicity. And Moby Dick, I think, is one of those where I think his impact could be just immeasurable for the team. And having an incredibly solid backline staff, especially with a lot of new players coming in from Contenders, is going to be extremely important. You have a lot of Philadelphia Fusion kind of love in this team at the moment, which is great. And him with KDG and Yang Won, I think that's an incredibly good coaching lineup great backroom stuff. And overall, I think the Toronto Defiant have looked strong, the strongest they've ever been, especially with Twilight, man. Like, what an unreal pickup for Toronto Defiant. He's the guy that you're going to look to really just perform and shine for this team and just set up Hisu and set up one of their tank players for success. Chorong might underperform a little bit, but Twilight's going to be able to pull that weight for sure. We'll have to see what they end up doing with Finale, of course. But I do think Toronto Defiant's a little bit of a sleeper team. I think you kind of say the name Toronto Defiant a lot of the time, and people are like, you know, like, the team has never done really well. It's never done an amazingly in any of the tournaments that have been run over the last couple of years, or just a team that anybody would look to and go, yeah, wow, they can definitely upset people here. It's crazy. Apart from when Aspire was on the roster, which I do think they had potential to upset people, and they did every now and then. But losing him, of course, this year for a complete rebuild is completely understandable. Overall, I think the team is great. Their history definitely shadows their name just a little bit and the way people think about the team. But I think having a complete rebuild like this is going to shift expectations on them completely. If it was like half and half, like half rebuild, half not, and they keep half the players, they'd be like, yeah, okay, Toronto fine. They're probably going to do the same thing, unless they picked up some cracked players. But being a complete rebuild like this, and with the players and the caliber of players they picked up, this very well could be the best year for the Toronto Defiant in Overwatch League history. Is this the breakout year for them? We'll have to wait and see. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I'm silently excited right now for the Toronto Defiant. What do you think? I'll see you soon.